Good. All right. So, hello, everybody. Today I'm here to talk about ugliness in acting. Is there such thing as being too ugly? And why does this matter for Shakespeare? It really does actually matter for Shakespeare. So, we're going to talk about how this impacts our Shakespeare and how it impacts our acting in the bigger picture. Okay. So, the reason that I'm here to talk about this today, because it might seem like a bit of a shallow kind of topic. Like talking about ugliness, it sort of sounds like we're judging people. But the reason that I wanted to talk about it is actually because of a comment that I had on my YouTube channel. So I have a video that actually I'm just going to share it so you can see. So I've got a video called my top 5 tips. Here we go. So my top 5 tips for nailing your Shakespeare audition monologue. And I had an interesting comment about watching this after getting lots of rejections and rewatching my monologue videos and noticing that I'm too ugly. It was interesting to see tip number 4. So let me just kind of give you a little bit of context for that for a second. Hello, welcome. So I'm talking about ugliness today, and which is a very odd topic, but I'll break it all down for you. And maybe while I'm talking, and for those watching in the future as well, so hello to those watching the recording, pop in the comments whether you think ugliness is something that holds you back in your acting in any way. Maybe it's a fear of ugliness. Maybe it's a fear of whether you're too ugly or whether your face is too ugly or whether you need to worry about it at all. Do you think that ugliness holds you back in your acting? Is this something that you have given any thought to at all? So pop that into the comments, either if you're with me now or in the future, and we'll talk about a bit more about why this is important. So in my video that I mentioned, this top five tips for nailing your monologue, one of the top tips that I often give people with Shakespeare is to think about whether you are being too pretty. This is a thing that we often experience with Shakespeare. Often this is because we think of Shakespeare as being beautiful. Maybe we don't realize it, or maybe we do, but often we have this feeling like maybe the language is really beautiful and we want to do it justice, or maybe we feel like the characters are really beautiful if we're playing, say, a historical character. Maybe we feel this pressure to be a certain way, to kind of beautify what we have, or to create something that's maybe quite formal, for example. But it usually turns up in the language. So it usually shows up to do with this feeling that the language is very beautiful and we need to do this job to make it beautiful. But what often happens then is it becomes very false. So if you think about anything from Shakespeare, if you're thinking about a beautiful line from Shakespeare, if we're trying really hard to make this a beautiful phrase, we're immediately going to start pushing. And that's what's happening a lot of the time. Okay, so let's talk about how we can solve this. And what does that mean if we've got, say, a self-tape and we're looking at it and we're going, oh, but I don't think I'm beautiful here. What do I do about it? Okay, let me just check for a moment. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure that it is coming up in the Facebook group as well. Give me just a hot sec. Okay, yes, I think we are good. All right, cool, we'll continue. Okay, so, as we go through, just either whether you're with me now or whether you're watching this in the future, just drop me your comments. Just think about how this has affected you. When you work on Shakespeare, for example, do you feel that pressure to be beautiful? And if you think about what does that feel like in your body, for example. So if we were going to take a line from Shakespeare, let's think of, I was going to bring up a line that was going to help us out, but let's say that we're doing a line like, set your heart at rest, the fairyland buys not the child of me. So let's say we're being Titania and we're thinking about this kind of beautiful language, or this even ethereal language that she's creating for us. If you now, and it can be any line that you're thinking of, and you could even do this exercise. Let's do this exercise together. You could even do it with something like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. I always go back to, just if in doubt, do these exercises with a nursery rhyme to make sure that you're understanding the feeling of it. And I want you to pay attention to the feeling in your body. So if you've got this pressure, to be beautiful. Let's say that we've got Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall and we're trying to be beautiful with it. If you say it out loud right now and you try and make it beautiful, notice what happens to your body and your voice. So do it with me now, and you can do any line you like, whether it's a nursery rhyme or a bit of Shakespeare, whatever you want. Let's do it. So Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Can you see immediately, like, I'm overdoing it, right? I'm already like, oh my goodness, I'm forcing it, right? And this is often what happens. And this is why I say to people, you need to practice being ugly. You need to embrace ugliness. And that was my tip in my little video. So if you're doing it with me, drop it in the comments how you felt in your body when you were doing this kind of fake beautiful thing, right? So for me, I can immediately feel myself kind of, so I was overworking the text. Did you notice I was very like spread out? I was trying to put a lot of weight on the words. I get a little bit whispery and I feel like I'm kind of doing a lot of chin acting, right? And it's very false. It does not feel good and it would not look good, right? So immediately there's stuff happening we're trying to connect to something outside of ourselves. And when we're trying to connect to that exterior experience, we always end up pushing or grasping, reaching from something outside ourselves. But so what we want to create is a sensation inside that feels real. I'm going to talk about how to do that very soon, but let's break down what this person was really asking me about, because it's easy to say, right? If I say to you, you need to embrace ugliness, right? So you're not forcing. What I often say is have a run through of your monologue, for example, and try and do it ugly. This will break through anything that you're holding on to that feels like you need to make it beautiful. But then what happens if you watch yourself tape back and it looks way too intense or you're making crazy faces? What do we do about that? So let me go back for a second and just kind of break down what this person was asking me about, because I think it's really relevant to so many people. So she mentioned that she felt too ugly when they mentioned that they felt ugly. I think the reason that I often say she here is often a lot of women feel this, but I think it is actually across the board. So I think this applies to everybody. We feel this pressure to feel beautiful, and that can come from Shakespeare, and it can also come from the industry, right? Because this industry that we're in, let's be realistic, there is a focus on being beautiful. There is a focus on attractive people quite often. And we often feel like we need to look a certain way or behave a certain way in order to have success. But I don't think that's actually true. Like ultimately, I don't think the industry really needs beauty. I think that is something that we keep for ourselves, that we are afraid of. So let's break this all down piece by piece. Tell me, let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Does that resonate for you? All right. So I'm asked this person, what do you mean by ugly? And they said that I'm too expressive, my mouth and eyebrows, especially if I'm doing an emotionally heavy scene. It feels good when I'm doing it, but when I look back, I look hideous, which, you are not hideous. You are not hideous, my friend. No, none of you are hideous. Okay. So let's break this down. What is actually happening here? It's actually quite simple. So actually, the first thing that comes to mind is I just want to break down that I don't believe there is such a thing as being too ugly in acting. And let's just have a look at this thing for a hot second. I am going to bring something up for you. All right, here we go. Right. This is what... The ugly cry. I think this is really, really good, especially Claire Danes, I think, in Homeland was kind of notorious for her ugly cry in Homeland, because she really just lets rip, right? And if you can see these pictures, which I'm pretty sure you can see me sharing my screen. Yes, you should be good. You can see how she kind of just absolutely goes for it. And it looks intense, right? Because it was really intense and her character was going through some very odd things. But we go with it, right? Most of the time with acting, we'll go with it. We'll go with the ugly cry or any sort of ugly face if it feels truthful. So the first thing, if you're experiencing this in your own work, where you look back at your work and you go, I think that is looking too ugly, what I want to say to you is you need to firstly, let's look at the nuances. Are there anything, and let me just stop sharing so I can come back to you, come and visit you guys. So firstly, think about, am I being too critical of myself? And that may be difficult to decide, right? So firstly, am I being too critical of my own face, of my own work? And if you are doing, say, a big emotional scene on self-tape, especially if it's Shakespeare, but also any type of heightened text or heightened circumstance, it will often look really intense in a self-tape because the self-tape is not friendly to that kind of performance, right? So don't feel alarmed if you watch yourself back and it looks really intense. You don't necessarily need to be alarmed by that. What I would say is, if you are also not getting cast or you're not getting into the school that you want, that sort of thing, and you're looking at it and going, oh, it's too ugly, what I would suggest is actually not ugliness that's the problem. It's very rare that we're going to not get cast because we're too ugly. What is usually the problem that's coming through that a panel will identify, even if you're not sure, as part of that ugliness. Ugliness is a symptom. It's tension. So it's actually tension that you're experiencing that is arising because you are pushing for something. Now, it might be that you're pushing to be beautiful, as we talked about, that kind of like external thing that it comes across as quite fake. It usually comes across as quite forced. And even if you're pretty good at it, it will still be that you're not really connected to the character. So it will come across as a disconnect because you're pretending, essentially. You're having something that's outside of yourself that you're trying to reach for. And if that feels difficult to you, this is what I invite you to think about. What is that experience in your body when you feel beauty inside yourself? So firstly, acknowledging that your human experience is beautiful enough. That's really important to know. Everything that you feel is beautiful. You are beautiful as a human being, right? And so anything that's going on inside you is beautiful. And when I say that, I mean the small emotions and small sensations as well as the big ones. Quite often when we're acting, we think that only the big emotions are the ones that are going to get you cast or get you into your school. But small emotions, or what you might think of as like trivial emotions, for example, are as important as those big ones. So what I'm talking about is we usually go for I had a teacher that used to say that with the big five that he said, sad, mad, glad, scared, or horny. That's his big five of like the big emotions. And this was an improv teacher who, it would say, if you're struggling to find a point of view for the character, grab one of those big five. But what I would say is we often as actors, we put those up on a pedestal. Look, I'm so sad. I'm so angry, right? Here's my big feelings over this big situation. But actually your small emotions, your overlooked emotions are as wonderful as those bigger ones. And so that could be things like delight, cynicism, what else? Like whimsy, whimsy is not really an emotion, but things like that, nostalgia, like little things that we kind of skim over. That is enough. So firstly, understanding that all of your experiences are enough and you don't have to push for the big five. And then also, what was I going to say the next step? Yes, understanding that it can happen inside you. So most of the time when we're getting overactive face, for example, so I've had people say this to me before, my eyebrows are crazy, right? Or I'm doing chin acting. That's for me, that's one of my things that ends up happening. So, or, I'm getting like crazy mouth, for example. Those sorts of things, they're a result of tension. Hello, and so just to people that have joined us, hi, and we're talking about ugliness and ugliness, yes, ugliness in our acting and beauty and how we experience that. So just drop in the comments, how you experience this pressure to be beautiful in different ways. So what I invite you to do is to think about what it feels like in your body, the sensation of experiencing beauty, let's say, inside you. And this can actually apply to any type of experience, but let's start with beauty. So if you, for a moment, you could close your eyes and think about a place that you've been to, maybe like a place in nature, or you could think of a person that you think of as beautiful, that doesn't kind of push your buttons, it doesn't give you any triggers, for example, that you look at it and you just feel like that is beautiful. So it could be someone that you love, or it could be a place that you've been that just absolutely blows your mind. Think of that place or that person and track the sensations in your body, right? And then see if you can just amplify that sensation. And if you find it hard to track that sort of feeling in your body, sometimes giving it, say, color. Like for me, it's like I can feel like it seems like a yellow spreading across my chest, for example. So if you can locate it, where is it happening in your body, and give it a color or even a texture, it feels like sunlight, it feels like water, anything like that, and let it radiate through you. This will usually start to help you experience in your body with a feeling of ease. And if you have that feeling in your body and then you speak your line, maybe Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, or, whatever it is, try that now. So say just a line from your monologue or from a nursery rhyme out loud with that experience of beauty in your body. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. It feels silly doing a nursery rhyme, but you might notice how different that was to the first time I said it. So let me know, if you're having a go at this, let me know, what did you feel that was different in the body? So for me, I noticed that first time, as I mentioned, that I felt like I was reaching, I was pushing, I was overworking the text. I was thinking about every single word and trying to push all the feelings onto it. Whereas when I felt that inside me, I could just say it, right? And that is a lack of tension. That's allowing the sensations and the emotions to flow. So going back to, if you find that you are, overworking your eyebrows because you're, going through your monologue and it's a big dramatic monologue, what that usually is a disconnect to your body. So what I would suggest to you is actually take a moment to do these kinds of things, an exercise like we just did, where you can just sit quietly with your eyes closed and invite the sensations into your body that your character experiences when you're doing that monologue, and not force anything, just at one at a time. When I say this line, what does it feel like? Where am I feeling it? What color is it? What texture is it? If you struggle with imagination work, you might want to just work physically. So you might say, I feel like I've got tension in my hands, for example, when I feel mad at so-and-so. Then you can actually physically build that up. So there's different ways to work. And of course, this is it's a whole thing that can take us a long time to break down. But those are some really simple things you can do. So just to make sure that you've got some really clear steps to help you move forward here when you're experiencing those things. Firstly, come back to the body. That's really all it is. Come back to the body and think about sensation. And actually, I would say even before that, because this is just tension, right? When we're seeing our face overworked, it's because we're pushing too hard for the emotion. We're forcing what's coming. Even if it feels right, sometimes we are forcing even when we don't realize it. So if you're not getting cast in things, I would say that you're probably pushing too much. You're forcing and you're not as connected as you could be. As I said, this is a journey. So release tension. So the first thing I do, if I feel myself forcing, I start shaking my arms out and shaking my legs out. Particularly, I love shaking my legs. So you'll see me, like I'll be sharing some stuff on social media soon, but you'll see me like kicking my legs around. This releases, particularly kicking the legs. I love kicking my legs, giving your legs a really, really good shake and kick, like really, really vigorous. That will also release your stomach muscles. And a lot of the time we're tensing around our abdominal area. We can often tense around there. That will always create tension as well, because we cannot let sensations flow through the body if that center part of us is like, it's like a bottleneck, right? So release. So firstly, okay, I'm overdoing it. Shake, shake, shake. And that might also be for you a practice of, before I do my self-tape, before I do my audition, when I rehearse, I make sure I release tension, because I have a tendency to force. And that's from a lot of us. And I do that. Like, I can constantly shake. I'm faking it. Shake, shake, shake. This is normal. It's normal to have that. And eventually what will happen is that you will feel more relaxed in your body, and your body will feel safe to express whatever's going on for it. And you'll start to trust that. So there are a couple of steps. So firstly, shake, 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 and then check in, where is that happening? Where am I feeling that sensation? How can I amplify that sensation without forcing an emotion to come? Trusting that small emotions, whatever I experience in this monologue, is okay. You do not have to go for the big five, right? So allow the small things to come through. And as another step that you can do is, in your rehearsal, do a run through of your monologue or your scene or whatever it is, a whole full night in a season if you're doing performance, where you just explore and be in discovery mode about, what are the small things that I'm experiencing right now that I have not been focused on? Because we will always be going, where are those big moments for the character? You know them by now. I'm telling you, unless you're right at the beginning of this process, you know what those big moments are. And you've probably, maybe you've had a director or a coach help you make sure those land. You know where they are. You don't have to track the big moments. Track the small moments. That's what's going to bring you back to being real, right? So go back to being small. Hello. Hello. This is. Oh, I'm going to just pop that on the screen just so I feel great about myself. This is really fascinating. Thank you. Great. Yeah. So, there are some of the big things that I want to say to you, because I see this all the time. So I want to make sure that if you're seeing that in your own work, you're overdoing it, just firstly, be kind to yourself. It's normal to have tension, and that's part of the process of acting. And that's why, Anthony Hopkins said, acting is just a process of relaxation. And when I first saw that, I was like, no, it's not. I was so reactive, because I was like, well, what about if you're doing something like Shakespeare, where, you can't really relax because you have to have more energy in your body. This is heightened. And yes, let's talk about that for a second. Hello to those joining us. We're talking about ugliness. So, if you're just joining us, feel free to pop in the comments, does ugliness haunt you? Are you afraid of being ugly when you act? Because this is what we've just been breaking it all down. But let's talk about this relaxation thing. So especially in a heightened text. So let's talk about any situation where you are working to have more energy in your body. So with Shakespeare, we have a lot of energy in our body, particularly if we're going to, yes, we're shouting out, yes, I definitely feel that pressure to be beautiful. We feel it. So with Shakespeare, it's a heightened text. We do need to have more energy in our body, especially if we're in an outdoor space, for example. We need to have a lot of that energy. And sometimes what will happen because of that is that we will force as well, right? Just because we're like, it's bigger, So how does what Anthony Hopkins said apply to Shakespeare about this relaxation? Firstly, I think it's a trust process, trusting that anything you feel is valid. So then you don't have to force for an emotion. We often feel this pressure, right? To perform. Here's this feeling. Here's the feeling of the character. The audience is not there for your feelings. I could say this all day, and I will. We don't care about your feelings, right? This is a big misconception, I believe, with acting. People think that it's about the feelings. It is not. It is about a story, a journey. If you are serving the journey, you are doing the work. And maybe the emotions will turn up a little differently today, and that's okay, right? It's okay not to cry on cue. That focus on crying on cue is just absolute BS. We see so much of it for beginner actors, how to cry on cue. It's all over TikTok and stuff. That is rubbish. We do not care whether you cry on cue. It's very rare that you actually need to do that in a professional situation. It's so rare. So stop focusing on feelings and focus on story. That will help you. That will help you trust yourself. That will help you allow things to flow. And I want to just acknowledge that when we think about like, oh, I have to make the language beautiful, for example, that is not the same as doing the work, right? Actually, that's a shortcut and it's kind of fake, and I want to call you on it. If I'm just kind of going blah, 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 like, and I always think of Orlando Bloom. I watched like 15 minutes of Orlando Bloom playing Romeo on Broadway HD, and the whole production, everyone was staring out into the middle distance and whispering, like, blah, 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 she's this, what light from yonder window breaks, that, oh my goodness. Well, that is not doing the work. That is not actually making the language beautiful. That is a shortcut that feels good to you. That is different, right, to doing the work. So if we are, for example, looking at the text and pulling it apart, right, pulling it apart, finding those language features. Hello to those joining us. We're talking about ugliness today. I'm loving just like every now and then when I'm seeing people join, I'm like, oh, we're talking about ugliness. So doing the work on the text is different. So if you actually want the language to be beautiful, what you need to do is the work. And when I say the work, what I mean is script analysis. So actually looking at what are the language features, what are the rhythms. And if you're new to Shakespeare, it's okay if you don't know how to find that stuff. That's the beginning, that's how you first start to learn these things. But actually being aware of, okay, I need to pull the language apart. What kind of alliteration and assonance am I seeing? That's a really easy first step that you can look at. That's my script analysis that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the beats. I'm understanding what's going on in between, making sure you do script analysis, and making sure you do your physical and vocal work, right? So working on your voice so it is resonant and you're able to be free with it, and you can be flexible, vocally flexible. It can do what you want. It has different colors. It doesn't always sound the same all the time. And you understand what you're doing with your voice. And the same for your body. Are you able to be expressive? Can you move freely? Doing that work on the text or your voice or your body, that is not forcing or, trying to find that beauty outside yourself. That is where you will find and serve the text, and this goes for any text, any type of thing that you need to act. Doing the work on the text, understanding it, and then learning how to bring it into your body is what we should be doing rather than declaiming, right? So they're the things to think about. Am I actually doing the work? How do I do the work? Am I aware of my own technique, right? So, drop me a comment. Do you feel like do you know what to do? Do you feel like you have a process? Do you feel like you do the work, or do you feel like you jump to feelings? So let me know. That while I have a sip of my tea. Is anyone else a person where you keep the spoon in the tea? This is my family always makes fun of me. Anyway, so I'll give you a moment to pop your comments in. And I think they're the main things that I want to leave you with today. And I'm really excited to announce that I have a new offering for you. I'm providing access to my core content that I created for Shakespeare Mastery Academy. So Shakespeare Mastery Academy, we do classes every week together, but I only open the doors a couple of times a year. And what I decided was this core content that I created, which is 12 lessons, stepping through some of the most important things, I think the most important things that you need to have as a foundation to act Shakespeare well. I've packaged that all up for you so you can access that without having to be a member of Shakespeare Mastery Academy. So this is called my Shakespeare with Sarah Essentials Hub. And I'm really excited for it to be out there. And so it is $7 a month because it will be access to the content, but also to me, because I'll be doing more lives like this, Q&A, hot seats, special workshops, that kind of thing. So I will, once I get off the live, I will pop that in the comments. So if you are excited about that, you can come and join. But it's the reason that I'm talking about it today is because we have a whole lesson on breaking through fear. And this ugliness stuff, it's just fear. Right? So when we go through that process of identifying where our fears are, we become more free, not just with Shakespeare, but also in our acting generally. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to pop your comment up here if that's okay, because I think it's a really useful one. So I majorly struggle with a process and have yet to curate one. I feel you. Oh my goodness. And then get exhausted emotionally and can't rehearse regularly, but I'm working on it and this helps a lot. I'm so glad it helps. And I've got to tell you, like, I took a break from acting. I got really burnt out. I was like 10 years ago now, actually. I took a break from acting. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I went and did my teaching qualification, and I had my son. And then a few years later, I was like, I'm ready to come back. And when I came back, I did not have a process. I just was like, what do I normally do? What did I used to do here? How do I pull this apart? And I think that was probably partly because I'd forgotten, but also I don't think I had a robust enough process before. I think I was just working regularly enough that I kind of didn't need a process because I kind of just could do it intuitively a bit more. I had some things that I did, but it wasn't substantial. And when I came back, I was like, what am I doing? And I remember saying to people that I don't have a process. I don't know where to start. And all of my work when I came back is so forced. It's so like, I was terrible. You know, it actually took me several years to get back to going, oh, this is what it feels. I still feel like I'm going, this is what it feels like. And I'm still interrogating my process, because I think with process, it changes over time, right? It will change depending on how your life changes, everything that you've learnt. So if you struggle with process, be really kind to yourself, because I think a lot of us do. And it's really open-ended, right? Like I kind of, for a while, I was like, I'm going to do 2 hours a day, you know, and it's not really realistic. But it depends also on how you like to work. So everyone's process will be unique depending on how you like to work, and also depending on your lifestyle, right? So some people might have a 2-hour block every day that they can use, and some people may not. For me, I've realized that actually what works better for me is to be looking after things. Yeah, I love that. I'll address that in a sec. Yeah, so for me, I've realized that it actually works better for me to go, I'm going to look after my body, you know, at a different time. I'm going to do my yoga, you know, in the mornings, and then I'm going to do my vocal work. You know, when I come home from this thing, I'll do my warm up, and then I do my acting work at the end of the day before I pick my son up from school. And I might only do 20 minutes of acting stuff, but it all adds up. And that actually makes me feel so much better to just pick something up and be like, all right, what will we do today? But this is, I'll link this in, because what I've realized for myself is that I need a framework. And I don't think people talk about this enough. I should do a whole other live on this, because we're going in another direction. We should talk about process. But just to kind of like really vaguely tap into this while we're here. For me, I realized I needed a 3-part framework. And that once I understood that framework, I could tap into the different elements of the framework in different ways at different times, and it made my life easier. So I'll tell you about this framework, because this is the framework that I use as a coach and also in my Essentials Hub, which is now available. Woo-hoo. Okay, so the framework is, so analysis. So we're talking about script analysis before. So picking apart, like, what is actually there? How can I find the details? Right. I need details. I need to know the given circumstances in a way that I can make powerful, unique choices that stand out. Right. So I need to know how to find those details, and fast, because I don't always have a lot of time. No one does, is what I mean. None of us do. So the next one is embodiment. So once you know that stuff, it's no good just knowing it, right? We have to get it into the body. How do I then take the bridge over to my body to make sure that this is something I can experience? Because it's not useful if it's not playable, right? So if I found some stuff in my script analysis, but I can't play it, that's worth bugger all. Right? So getting it across that bridge is really difficult for a lot of actors. So often we're good at one of these areas and we kind of hang out in one area. I love embodiment, and I don't want it because I don't want to sit down and do my script analysis. And so I'll talk about how I navigate that in a minute. The third one is freedom. And that is about getting out of your head and breaking your patterns. I think this process is essential in Shakespeare. And this is why I'm so passionate about Shakespeare, is because it teaches us to do these things. We have to do them, or we will not do a good job. We have to do that script analysis, or we're not finding, what's in the text. We may as well just be doing a nursery rhyme. We have to be in our bodies because it's heightened. And so we have to connect text and experience. And finally, we have to be free because there's so much pressure on us with Shakespeare that it's been going for hundreds of years. So we feel that pressure, but also because it's so technical. But that's the case for every single different type of acting in different ways, right? So it might just be that you might be doing green screen work and you need to hit a mark and then fly and all sorts of things. We need to still be able to be free and not stuck. We need to be able to be adaptable, do what a director says. So we need to practice that as well. That is an essential part of our practice. So that's my framework: analysis, embodiment, freedom. And what I've found in my own practice is that I can then enter into different parts of that framework depending on where I am in the process, right? So if I'm really close to an audition, then freedom work is what I need. If it's at the beginning of the process, I will probably jump back and forth between embodiment and analysis in any way that helps me feel good about it. Because ultimately, and let me just bring up this comment here that you had. So you're at college, yeah, it's difficult to balance people's. Hang on, you're in UK. Isn't it like 2 a.m.? Wait, what time is it right now? Thank you for being here. Make sure you get some sleep. Yeah, it's different. It is so difficult. And honestly, like that drama school / college time, it's impossible. It's impossible. There will always be struggles. I really think one of the things that we need for ourselves is to be really kind and really realistic about what our process can sustain, right? What is sustainable for us? It's so important because otherwise you're going to have all this pressure to do all the things. And at college, at drama school, you will have pressure to do all the things and it's impossible. And that's kind of the point of of that time. Yeah, it's impossible. Don't, yes, yes, it is 2 a.m. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, don't stay up too late. You need to look after your body. Anyway, but I'm sure you're young and vital and can bounce back. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. Oh, and by the way, probably you guys, let me have a look in the group because when I am on StreamYard, I can't see who's commenting. So I probably know. Oh, Maisie Ann, right, and Laura. Hi guys. Sorry, I didn't know who was joining me. Yeah, so you have to give them permission to use your name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I think one of our things as an actor is being really kind of ruthless about this is what sustains me and this is what works for me. Do not, listen too much to the other people going, you have to do this, you have to do that. Take what you need, leave what you don't. Take what works, leave what doesn't, right? You have to have a process that works for you. And for me personally at the moment, that looks like I am exploring what are my favorite 5-minute exercises that always give me results, right? Let's take away, we are part of the hustle culture in acting as well, that you have to do all the things. Stuff that, guys. Let's just get rid of that. I'm trying to not swear, but let's let go of all that and just think about what serves you and what is most effective for you. For me, it's always been like writing thoughts in between. And that's a whole thing that I teach as well. Finding those connecting thoughts, finding inner monologue, that works really well for me. But other people, it's other things. And as I've changed as a person, as my practice has changed, different things work. And what I really enjoy doing is also then going to the next level, take what your teachers are teaching you in school and then take it to the next level and find what else could I do with this, right? Being really able to trust yourself. Like I've been doing like bar classes, like online bar classes recently, which, like the kind of Pilates ballet stuff. And that weirdly has affected what I do in my acting practice. I've ended up doing a lot more like leg stuff because I've realized, this actually, like, it affects my core. It makes me feel a certain way. And I'm playing, and then I'm going like, how does this affect me? So knowing that you can create your own exercises, you can create your own process. But what I would say for you is maybe try my framework and see if you can find a process within that framework that works for you. But also just in this first, actually at any time in your acting, that perhaps part of your process is to look for what's most effective, right? So if we go back to just what you said before, like maybe that curating a process is a lifelong pursuit and a working document. We're not working, it's a working process. Things change all the time, and you will change all the time. So things that worked for you before may not work in the future. So experimenting with your own process. So when you go to rehearse, what might my process look like today? What do I want to add to my process today? What's going to serve me the best today, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, have a little bit of a play with it. So the Essentials Hubs, that just in case, for some of you joined us with people going in and out. So the Essentials Hub, there's 12 lessons. 3 of them are like for absolute beginners. And then I've got 9 lessons that work through that framework. So we get 3 lessons for each part of the framework. So that's why I created this, is because I think we all need things, because I'm all about practicality. We just need things that will help us get things done effectively and efficiently. We do not have time. No one has time, right? No one has time. We don't need to stuff around. It should never be endless stuff. It should be consistent practice of some sort. So my goal is to kind of hand you things that will serve you in different ways that you can take it and run with it. Right. So, anyway, I'm going to be sharing about the hub over time, because I'm going to keep that one open all the time, so people can pop in and out for as long as it serves your process. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'll hang out here for like a hot second to just, pop down anything, maybe pop down, because this is my favorite thing to wrap up classes, is like pop down like one thing that's going to stick with you that you're going to try. Right. So and even if you guys are watching this in the future, I love talking to people in the future. One thing that you just listen to that you're like, I'm going to do that. And of course, I came on this live and I was like, this is going to be a 10-minute live. 40 minutes later, because I go too deep. But this is what you get with me. I'm here to help. All right. I will let you guys, I think sometimes it takes a little while for the comments to show up. So I might sign off and say, thank you so much for joining me. And then I'll be back in the group checking on this. And I'm also going to pop this video on Facebook's, not on Facebook's, on, locating emotion and coloring it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That is one of my favorites. It's so useful. Check in with yourself. Be really, like, a last thing I want to leave with you is, if a thing does not work for you, don't assume that you're doing it wrong, right? There's so many people be like, oh, I just can't get it. My teacher wants me to do this, blah, 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 it's not working. That one doesn't work for you. Do something else. I worked with a student who had aphantasia, which is like you can't see pictures. And I think that is way more common than people think. And it's so hard for actors. But she hated doing that kind of stuff. And then we realized, she can't see things. She doesn't have an imagination, a visual imagination. But what worked for her was in a monologue. So it's okay to, hate certain exercises. Unfortunately, when you're training, sometimes it's like, get it right. Once you graduate, you will do your own thing. So take what works, leave what doesn't. All right. Mwah. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be in touch with everybody. Drop comments if you're watching in the future, and I'll answer you that way. But thanks so much for being here, and bye everybody. See you soon.